Hello and welcome to the first video in what will hopefully be a series called Paul Reads and Mr Men. I have book 1, it's called Mr Tickle, and I'm going to read it. I've already read it. I wanted to make some notes and things and get some ideas going in my head as to what I was going to say. It's a surprisingly dark book, is this. Mr Tickle, he's more of a, what you might call, an anti-hero than a hero. Roger Hargreaves, obviously, I don't know if he was setting a precedent for the series. Maybe all the Mr Men are borderline sociopaths. I don't know. But, yeah, Mr Tickle. Bit of a dodgy fella. I'll tell you for why. It starts off, he's in bed, right? It was a warm, sunny morning. Sun's quite high in the sky, I'd say, yeah. So why he's still in bed, I don't know. Perhaps he's being lazy. First thing he does when he wakes up, sends his big long tickly arms, you see, sends his big long tickly arms downstairs to the kitchen cupboard to get a chocolate cookie, right? And then we learn later, right, because I thought to myself, it's not a very healthy breakfast. What kind of impression is that given to the kids who are reading these books? Chocolate cookies for breakfast. Ask you, but it's not his breakfast. No, it's just what he eats while he's too lazy to get out of bed. Because if we say later that morning, right, after Mr Tickle had made his bed and cooked his breakfast, he set off through the wood. He eats chocolate cookies while he's working up the energy to cook a proper breakfast. Not a good example to set the children, Mr Hargreaves. What are you thinking? Why is he heading off through the woods? He's heading off looking for someone to tickle. As you do when you've got big long tickly arms. So, he's heading off and eventually Mr Tickle came to a school. Now, I don't know what it is. I blame maybe the Daily Mail or one of those lads, you know. But when I hear about a single man, lives alone, spends his time wandering around looking for strangers to tickle, and I read about him heading into a school, my mind goes to dark places. I'm sorry, you know, maybe that's a reflection of the kind of hysterical attitudes of the tabloid media. I don't know. Maybe I should give people the benefit of a doubt a little more. But I had to. Ooh, I wasn't thinking well of Mr Tickle at this point. But it's okay, because he doesn't tickle any of the pupils. He leaves those kids alone, and he tickles the teacher. And we get a passage that says, right, this is an intriguing little passage, this, which could have major ramifications down the line. The teacher jumped in the air and turned round very quickly to see who was there. Now, but there was nobody there. Now, I think, you could think that what he's trying to say is that he turned round and there's no one there because there's no one stood right behind him, right? Because you would expect someone to be stood right behind you if you were tickled. But obviously Mr Tickle, he's doing it from outside, you see, he's using his big long arms through the window. I, however, have a theory, because if you spun round expecting to see someone stood behind you, and there was no one stood behind you, but there was an orange blob in the window with big long wavy arms, you would almost certainly spot the orange blob with the big long wavy arms. Okay, so what I think is that the Mr Men, perhaps only Mr Tickle, perhaps all of the Mr Men, there they are, what about? We'll get to them later, have some kind of mutant ability to shield themselves from view, invisibility, or maybe maybe they were hit by cosmic storms on a mission to Mars or something. I don't know, but maybe they have the ability to become invisible when they don't want to be seen. And certainly, some of the stuff that Mr Tickle gets up to later in this book, he must have some kind of means of evading capture, because the police are going to be on him. They're going to be wanting him. They're going to be hunting him like a dog. Some of the stuff he gets up to, it's atrocious. But anyway, he tickles the teacher. The kids are all loving it. Loving every second of it. Look at those big cheesy grins. Kids are loving it. Teacher not so much. But he waited another minute and then tickled the teacher again. There was a terrible pandemonium. So he's caused chaos in a school, essentially. Yeah, the teacher is rolling around laughing, screaming, "Stop it, stop it." The kids are laughing like hyenas. And Mr Tickle's loving every second of it. He's just ruined probably a whole day. You're not going to get their attention back now. You're not going to get their attention back now. That's a day's education ruined. When they fail their SATs, who's going to be to blame? The parents are going to blame the teachers. It's him. Mr Tickle. Anyway, moving on from the school. Eventually, Mr Tickle thought that he had had enough fun, so he gave the teacher one more tickle for luck and very quietly brought his arm back through the open window. Chuckling to himself, he's still laughing. He jumped down from the window, leaving the poor teacher to explain what it was all about, which of course he couldn't. Then Mr Tickle went to town. Literally, yes. But you've got to, he went to town. Seriously, some of the stuff. What a day he had, exactly. He tickled the policeman on traffic duty at the crossroads in the middle of town and caused an enormous traffic jam. He tickled the greengrocer, right? The greengrocer fell over backwards and the apples rolled all over the shop. No, they didn't. I have pictorial evidence. The apples rolled on top of the greengrocer. Don't try and sugarcoat it, Hargreaves. Grievous bodily harm. He could be concussed. Could have broken something. At the railway station, the guard was about to wave his flag for the train to leave. As he lifted his arm in the air, Mr Tickle tickled him. Every time he tried to wave his flag, Mr Tickle tickled him until the train was 10 minutes late, leaving the station, and all the passengers were furious. Such larks, eh? What fun. Borderline sociopath. In fact, I'm not even going to say borderline sociopath. The man is a menace. He needs locking up. That day, Mr Tickle tickled everybody. He tickled the doctor. He tickled the butcher. Here's the thing. I'm going to show you a picture here, right? That's the doctor. I'm assuming that's a doctor. It doesn't look much like a butcher, right? That doctor, he has his bag and he's walking down a lane. That doctor's on his way somewhere. There could be a life and death situation. That doctor could be on his way to deliver a baby in one of those cars stuck in a traffic jam. He could be on his way to treat the greengrocer. This could be the difference. This could be the difference, right, between permanent brain damage and not for that greengrocer. Apples aren't light, especially when there's that many of them. He could be on his way to the train station, wouldn't he? Because we already know from the very first page it was a warm, sunny morning. Yeah? So if that sun's got any hotter, and all those people are trapped in those train carriages, sweltering, in a bad mood, there's going to be carriage rage going on. There could be knifing victims. People getting bludgeoned with briefcases. Shit is going to be getting real on those trains. And the doctor can't go and sort it out because Mr Tickle is tickling him. He's a domestic terrorist is what Mr Tickle is. A domestic terrorist. He even tickled old Mr Stamp, the postman, who dropped all his letters into a puddle. He's interfering with the mail. But more than that, old Mr Stamp. Look at him. Old Mr Stamp. The man is ancient. Could be talking heart attack. Then Mr Tickle went home. He's had enough of terrorising his neighbourhood. He's gone home. Sitting in his armchair in his small house at the other side of the wood, he laughed and laughed every time he thought about all the people he had tickled. Look at that grin. Fucking shit-eating grin on his face there, look. No remorse at all. Wants locking up. So if you are in any way ticklish, this is the little epilogue here at the back of the book. Beware of Mr Tickle and those extraordinary long arms of his. Just think, perhaps he's somewhere about at this very moment, while you're reading this book. Perhaps that extraordinary long arm of his is creeping up to the door of this room. Perhaps it's opening the door now. Perhaps before you know what's happening, you will be well and truly tickled. If he tries it with me, I'll lamp him. Seriously. So there you go. The first book in what I was assured was a happy-go-lucky kids series turns out to be about a borderline sociopathic domestic terrorist with a tickling fetish. And a lazy fat one at that. Look, no wonder he's got a belly with all that chocolate biscuit malarkey at the start of the book. Mr Tickle. Bad guy. So yeah, there you go. That was Mr Tickle. The second Mr Man book, I'm looking at it here. Mr Grady. There you go. I'll be back at some point in the near future with my thoughts about Mr Grady. Hopefully, Hargreaves is playing the... I can't think of the word. I'm not a literary genius like he is. The old Star Trek trick of making the ugly aliens be good and the beautiful ones be bad. Hopefully, Mr Tickle, being a bad guy, means that the traditionally bad personality trait of being greedy means that Mr Grady's going to be a decent chap. We'll see. We'll see. I'll see you then. Bye. I apologise that I keep looking at the viewfinder and not at the camera. It's a habit I can't get out of. Bye.